What is predictive programming? The idea was first described and proposed by researcher Alan Watt, who defines predictive programming as a subtle form of psychological conditioning provided by the media to acquaint the public with planned societal changes to be implemented by our leaders. If and when these changes are put through, the public will already be familiarized with them and will accept them as natural progressions, thus lessening possible public resistance and commotion. A new Netflix film, Leave the World Behind, produced by Barack and Michelle Obama and based off the 2020 novel of the same name, was released last month and everybody is talking about it. For those who haven't seen the movie already, just to warn you, there are spoilers in this review, but to be honest, I found it almost too painfully real to watch, so you may not even want to see it yourself after you watch this review. The plot involves a family going on vacation to a luxurious rental home in Long Island. They notice a breakdown with the internet and phones, slowly discovering that a blackout has occurred. A man and his daughter show up at the door unannounced and claim to own the house. As they navigate the odd situation, strange occurrences begin happening around them as society seemingly begins to collapse. A hacker-induced cyberattack is the apparent cause, and it's leading to a civil war across the country. However, the film does not indicate the exact culprit throughout the story. The film's characters and the audience struggle to understand what's happening as it all unfolds. Now, I don't believe that this is just a fictional story. This is a predictive programming message from Netflix, from the Obamas, telling you what is going to happen. Before I continue, if you're new to this channel, please be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell for more content. I appreciate the support. I've noticed that Netflix has been coming out with a lot of red pill content lately, stories that you don't necessarily have to be a conspiracy theorist to believe because they are now just so blatantly obvious. I saw this with the new season of Black Mirror, specifically the episode Joan is Awful, which ironically was mocking Netflix to send a message about the future of deepfake technology and AI's role in entertainment. Graham Hancock, who is a very controversial figure, released the Ancient Apocalypse series, which presents theories about advanced civilizations in the last ice age. With Leave the World Behind, which actually plays like a long Black Mirror episode, we are shown the effects of a cyber attack based on the technology and scenarios that we are already familiar with. The film was directed by Sam Esmail, creator of the show Mr. Robot, which is also about hackers and cyber attacks. There is a lot of symbolism in this movie, so I'll just get right into it. What you'll notice in the beginning is the use of the color blue, which represents comfortability and familiarity. You see it on the inside of the house and the car they are driving. Even the blue sign on the grocery store says, "Point Comfort Marketplace." The family is clearly comfortable in their familiar routine. They would rather take the blue pill, get it? And they don't realize that their life is about to change very quickly. The first pivotal scene takes place at the beach when a giant oil tanker comes crashing into the shore. The security guard tells the family that this has already happened several times due to interference with the navigation system. Is this scene warning us what would happen if a cyber attack disrupted our GPS system?
There's a Starbucks.
Afterwards, the family stops to get their Starbucks, go swim in the pool, and eat dinner like nothing happened. They shortly discover that their phones and internet are not working, unable to get information about what is happening. In the middle of the night, the couple is greeted by the owner of the house, GH, and his daughter Ruth, who show up unannounced and tell them that they were in New York City when the blackout occurred. To avoid the chaos of the city, they decided to come to their Long Island home where they would feel more safe. This scene tells us that the best places to avoid in the event of a cyber attack would be the major cities. Julia Roberts' character, Amanda Sanford, becomes immediately fearful of GH and Ruth, suspecting that they are lying about being the owners and are possibly dangerous, while her husband Clay, played by Ethan Hawke, isn't skeptical at all. Clay represents the weak average person who refuses to question his reality, goes with the flow, and assumes everything is okay. Amanda, while being the skeptical one, is a misanthrope who doesn't trust people.
I fucking hate people.
This is what will create divides in the event of an apocalypse. People who turn against each other due to a lack of trust, and those who are left in the dust because they didn't stay informed. The elephant in the room is also the racial divide. GH is a successful black man sleeping in the basement with her daughter while having to share space with Clay, an emasculated white man, and Amanda, who is basically a typical rich white Karen. The kids are also spoiled, addicted to their devices and TV shows, and in the beginning are hardly fazed by what is happening. The film uses these specific characters to illustrate how racial, social, and political differences will also turn people against each other.
If the world falls apart, trust should not be doled out easily to anyone. especially white people.
I think that line tells us a lot about Ruth's political views. Another scene which doesn't require much explanation is the emergency broadcast system appearing on TV. I think we all know that that will certainly be happening in the event of some type of an apocalypse. We briefly see a CNN broadcast reporting the cyber attack, but then cuts out, and Amanda checks her phone the next morning and briefly sees push notifications about hackers behind the cyber attack, which immediately disappear. These are indicators that any news about what is going on will be hard to get. As GH and Ruth are watching the EBS privately in the basement, he said something strange, which is the first indication that he knew something like this was going to happen.
I need to think everything's gonna be okay.
Ruth also asks her father about a special client that he met with. There is more detail about this later in the film. The next day, the Sanford's daughter, Rose, is anxious to use the internet to get back to watching the show Friends, which bears a strange significance throughout the movie. While Amanda and Ruth are attempting to get along, Ruth acknowledges how she too has seen Friends.
I watched it too, but it's almost nostalgic for a time that never existed, you know?
Ruth is old enough to realize that, like every other adult in the movie, she has lived a significant chunk of her life without screens, whereas the children in the show can't imagine a life without screens or streaming technology. When the world around her is crumbling, Friends becomes the perfect form of escapism for Rose because it diverts her focus from a complex world-ending event that no one understands to a simpler fictional storyline that she knows will have a happy ending. Maybe that's why all the classic movies and TV shows from a different era have a special place in our hearts, because it's the happy ending that we crave instead of solving the real-world problems that will never end. Rose later discovers a large group of deer in the backyard, and this is only the first strange occurrence of animal activity in the movie. This is revealed to be the cause of animal migration patterns changing due to the cyber attack. I also find it interesting that Rose wears a NASA shirt. Is this referring to the satellite disruption in space, or perhaps a hint at some type of conspiracy like the moon landing? Clay attempts to drive into town to find someone who may know more information, but is unable to use his GPS to get his way around. GH also finds out that the satellites have been attacked when he finds that not even his satellite phone will work. This is definitely a message for those of us who rely so heavily on GPS that in the event of a cyber attack, most of us would be screwed. Does anybody even still use a physical roadmap these days? Now, here's something that left a lot of viewers puzzled, at least for those who don't speak Spanish. To Clay's surprise, he crosses paths with a Hispanic woman standing on the side of the road. After listening to her desperately begging for help, he abandons her and drives away because he fails to understand what she tells him in Spanish. Little does he realize that the language barrier could cost him more than he could comprehend. Although Clay grows increasingly anxious about helping the woman and understands what she is trying to say, she gives him valuable insight into what is happening around them. She mentions that she saw a plane dumping red smoke, likely referring to the drone that later dropped the red pamphlets on Clay's car. After Clay abandons her in the middle of nowhere, he loses the opportunity to do the morally correct thing and get new insights into the attack. This is a troubling scene because something as ridiculous as a language barrier will keep us from helping one another in a crisis. It's no accident for Clay's character that he is a media studies professor, someone who is so dependent on the media that he cannot function in a world where all digital media sources have been taken down. When Google Translate goes down, what would we do in a cyber attack if we can't communicate with each other? Clay is so ashamed of his actions that he doesn't even tell his family the truth about meeting the woman.
So you didn't see anyone that might help us figure out what's happening here?
No, I did not see anyone.
He also shows red pamphlets that fell from the sky, making the families consider what is happening to be some radical Islamic terrorist attack. But this turns out to be just a deception, creating confusion over who the real culprit is. If plane crashes weren't terrifying enough, another startling moment is when a high-frequency noise takes over, causing the son Archie to get sick and his teeth to fall out, which Kevin Bacon's character Danny explains to be a radiation weapon beamed out through sound, similar to the directed energy weapons used in Cuba that caused Havana syndrome back in 2016. Now, just to divert a little bit, I'm no expert in sound engineering and I cannot confirm this to be true, but I came across a video of this podcaster who downloaded a torrent file of Leave the World Behind and put the whole movie into his editing software. He discovered that there were multiple soundtracks, which he has never seen before with movie files, and they suspect, based on the research they've done, that one of these tracks might be an infrasonic sound wave which was intentionally embedded in the film as a type of sound weapon that can affect the viewer's brain. Again, I can't say that there is absolute proof of this, but he does cite some pretty good research on the topic of sound wave technology, so I encourage you to take a look at it. Also, if this is a film from the Obamas and we are noticing all of this predictive programming, I can't help but consider that it's possible, because I just think that there's something very insidious about this movie. Now, I think the scene that really hits home for me, especially with all the stuff happening to Elon Musk currently, is the Tesla scene. The family decides to leave the Long Island home to find another place to stay when they encounter a bunch of Teslas in a traffic jam. Amanda sees there are no drivers and realizes that the self-driving technology is what caused these cars to crash into each other. Is this supposed to be a symbolic attack on Elon Musk? This movie came out around the same time that a formal investigation by the EU was launched into X, formerly Twitter, accusing Musk of creating the platform to spread, quote, disinformation. And what I do know, Musk poses a threat to the establishment because they are trying to impose censorship on social media, where free speech is simply not allowed. He even stood up to advertisers like Disney for accusing him of anti-Semitism.
If somebody's gonna try to blackmail me with advertising, blackmail me with money, go yourself. Go yourself.
The best thing is use X and Twitter because it's obviously a threat to them. They wouldn't want to shut it down or go after Elon if it wasn't working. The greatest hope we have in 2024 is we have a sliver of the public square back that we didn't have in 20. And that's why they're going to try to either indict Elon or they're just going to try to crash Twitter through a DDoS attack or some sort of foreign threat. They're going to try to take Twitter down by the summer.
The EU is going after him now.
Yeah,
they just announced this today,
obviously.
Right?
No, people are saying things on Twitter that you're not allowed to say. Okay. And they're going very viral very quickly, and public opinion is changing too rapidly.
X has fundamentally changed public opinion since Musk took over, which is something that the establishment will do everything in its power to stop leading up to the 2024 election. And as Kirk mentions, this could be done using a cyber attack, so this scene in Leave the World Behind is very symbolic of that possibility, even if Tesla cars are completely unaffected in real life. The family comes back and GH tells Amanda the story about his client who warned him of the cyber attack.
No one is in control. No one is pulling the strings. But when events like this happen in the world, the best, even the most powerful people can hope for is a heads up.
Here's where the movie is showing all of its cards. They are talking about a secret cabal running the world, going around creating chaos. I think the key line, though, is no one is in control. Because even though there are rich and powerful people running the show, at the same time, I don't think they completely know what they're doing. If we're talking about a group of evil psychopaths making decisions, are they really using their best judgment? Probably not. And with all the chaos that they are creating, I don't think they fully understand the ramifications or the long-term consequences of their actions. Just because they have money doesn't mean that they're enlightened enough to know what to do with it. When Clay and GH take Archie to see Danny for medicine, Danny initially refuses to help them and points a gun in their face.
I can barely do anything without my cell phone and my GPS. I am a useless man.
Again, people fending for themselves, just trying to survive, is exactly what will turn people against each other. Just like Clay refused to help the Hispanic woman, Danny refuses to help Clay. And isn't it interesting how he calls himself a useless man? More signs that there are a lot of emasculated men in this world, hopelessly dependent on technology to get things done. After Danny decides to give them the medicine, GH goes into detail on how the cyber attack occurs in stages and what the goals are. They're telling you how it's going to go down. The film ends with bombs dropping on New York City, and Rose discovers a doomsday bunker in the neighbor's house. And of course, Rose gets the happy ending that she wanted, the final episode of Friends on DVD. Perhaps this is also a jab at Netflix that in a cyber attack, streaming content would not be available and we would actually end up needing all those DVDs that we decided to throw away or donate to Goodwill. So if you are preparing for Doomsday, stock up on your DVD collection while you're at it. Now, I'm not gonna say that I enjoyed this movie per se, because first of all, I think that the story could have been written a lot better. But truthfully, I was really just shocked because it's very close to what I envisioned an apocalyptic scenario in America to look like. There are zombie apocalypse films like I Am Legend or disaster films like 2012, which give very exaggerated portrayals of what the end of the world will look like. And of course, by design, these films were meant to be entertaining and not taken seriously. But in reality, there's often this looming fear many people have that the world could end any day, which is why these movies are successful. A situation that is potentially very real has an impact on our collective psyche. Fear is a way to manipulate the masses. And that is actually the reason that I don't recommend you watch Leave the World Behind. There's something very demonic about this movie, and it almost feels like some type of satanic ritual that is designed to instill fear. They want to reinforce these notions of not knowing what to do, not being prepared, turning against each other, and so on. I just feel like this would make me in fear of a cyber attack. It wouldn't help me navigate or be prepared for it. But what I will say is there are some uncomfortable truths about this movie, and very blatant symbolism, which is what makes it predictive programming. It is designed to condition the population into accepting these scenarios as normal if it were to happen in real life. So if you want to save yourself the horror of watching Leave the World Behind, I hope my review gave you the gist of it. But if you decide otherwise, please watch at your own risk. Hope you enjoyed this video. Please be sure to like, share, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more content. Thanks for watching Inverted World.